The sun had barely risen over the plain of southern Balwen, the wind whispered a strange silence through the grass.
There, in a remote village where cracked clay huts hugged the red soil like secrets buried deep in time, lived a girl named Alira. She was no stranger to hardship. Orphaned at 6, raised by a bitter aunt who saw her as nothing more than another mouth to feed, Alira had learned early that survival was a quiet act, one of swallowing pain, hiding tears, and hoping for kindness in a world that rarely offered it. Her only companions were her dreams, vivid and stubborn, where she wasn't the girl in rags but a woman who ran her own world, free and full of voice. But dreams, as the villagers often said, had no place in empty pots or dry fields. At 18, Alira's beauty had blossomed like desert flowers after rain, rare, radiant, and dangerous. Strangers noticed, especially men. One of them, a man with slick city clothes and promises that dripped like honey, came to her aunt with a proposition: work, food, a new life in a place far away. Her aunt never asked Alira. She just took the money and handed the girl over. Alira didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just looked at the horizon as they rode the dust-strapped road into the unknown, wondering why fate always felt like a bargain someone else made on her behalf. They arrived at dusk. The village of Nkulu was like something from a forgotten story. Tucked deep inside a crescent of cliffs and surrounded by forests so thick no wind passed through, it pulsed with a stillness Alira had never known. There were no modern roads, no wires or cell towers.
Just ut made of woven reed and stone, torche flickering at dusk and eyes. So many watching eyes. The man said little.
He handed her off to a tall, elegant figure with skin like polished mahogany and eyes as sharp as obsidian. His name was Master Dumo. He lived in the largest house in the village, a compound really, surrounded by carved gates and silent guards. "You belong here now," he said with a voice both gentle and firm.
No one leave Nkulu. Not without the wind's permission.
Alira thought it was a strange joke. It wasn't. Days became weeks. Life in the compound was strange, but not cruel. Master Dumo treated her with eerie kindness, offering clean clothes, books in old languages, and more food than she'd ever seen on one plate. Yet there were rules. She could not leave the compound at night. She could not ask about the forest. And she could never, under any circumstance, touch the carved door behind the library. The one with the spiraled symbol that pulsed faintly in moonlight. At first, Alira obeyed. What choice did she have? But the village was full of whispers, and she was too smart not to listen. She learned that no outsider had ever returned from Nkulu. That those who tried to escape disappeared without trace. That some of the villagers believed the land itself was alive and jealous, keeping what it was given, always watching, always waiting. One day, while sweeping the back corridor near the forbidden door, she heard something. A voice, faint, female, whispering a name. Her name. She froze. The room had gone cold.
The voice came again, softer this time. Alira.
She ran. That night, unable to sleep, Alira crept out to the edge of the courtyard. From behind the carved fence, she saw something that stole her breath. A woman, eyes blindfolded, hands bound in silver rope, was being led into the forest by two masked figures. The villagers watched silently, as though it was not the first time. The next morning, no one spoke of it. And when Alira asked, a servant girl only whispered, "It is the price. We all pay it eventually." The girl's name was Nia. She was a few years older than Alira, with eyes that had seen too much. At first, she was cautious. But as days turned into shared silences and stolen conversations, she opened up. "This village is older than any map," Nia said one moonless night. "They say it was born when the sky broke open, and something fell from the heavens into the earth. Since then, the forest has kept it sealed. No one leaves unless the forest allows." Alira scoffed. "So it's magic?" Nia looked at her with a strange intensity.
Or something worse.
Despite everything, Elira began to feel a rhythm to life here, predictable, quiet. Sometimes, Dummo would sit with her and ask her about her childhood, her dreams. His interest felt sincere, and yet, hollow. Like someone studying a rare insect. Then one morning, everything changed. Elira found Nia crying, her face bruised, clutching a bundle of cloth. Inside it was a small wooden carving, the same symbol from the forbidden door. "He knows," Nia whispered. "He knows we've talked." That evening, Dummo summoned Elira. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried something else. "You are clever, Elira," he said. "And curiosity can be dangerous in Kulu."
Itawakens things better left asleep. She said nothing.
Dummo leaned in. "Have you opened the door?"
No.
He smiled, as if amused. "Good. Because if you do, it will not be me you'll answer to." That night, she decided to run. With Nia's help, she stole into the shadows, navigating the dense paths behind the huts. They made it to the forest's edge before the wind shifted. Suddenly, it was everywhere, howling, clawing, alive. Elira saw the trees bend, not with the breeze, but with purpose. They were surrounded. Within moments, guards emerged. Elira was dragged back.
Nia screamed. She's not the one.
It was me. But Dummo didn't speak. He just looked at Elira with disappointment and something close to regret. "I gave you comfort," he said. "And you repay me with betrayal." She was thrown into the underground chamber beneath the house, the air thick with incense and damp stone. There, in the flickering candlelight, she saw it, an old tapestry, covered in dust, depicting the village's founding. A woman, crowned in fire, standing beside the forest's edge, holding the same spiraled symbol. Below her feet were bones.
And in the bottom corner, a child.
Her face. Or someone who looked exactly like her. Elira backed away in horror. Then, the door slammed shut behind her. And from the shadows, a voice spoke.
You were never sold, child.
You were returned.
Elira stood frozen.
The voice echoed again, soft yet ancient, vibrating through the stone floor beneath her feet.
You were never sold, child.
You were returned. She turned wildly, but saw no one.
Just the flickering flame of a dozen oil lamp dancing on the walls, casting shadow that moved like restless spirit. Who is there? She demanded. Show yourself.
Nothing. Only silence, and the faint sound of breathing that wasn't hers. She stepped closer to the tapestry, her heart pounding. That child, how could the face be hers? The tapestry looked older than any living person in Kulu. The colors were faded, but the detail was unmistakable. Same eyes, same birthmark under the left cheek, like a smudge of ash. It wasn't coincidence. It was memory. She reached out to touch it, and the moment her fingers brushed the thread, a sharp pain shot through her hand. She gasped. Blood welled up from a cut she hadn't seen, dripping onto the tapestry. And then it moved. The child's stitched eyes seemed to blink.
The fire on the crown flickered.
The trees at the edge of the cloth began to sway.
Elira stumbled back, brittle.
The ground trembled faintly. The door behind her opened not with footsteps or keys, but with wind. In stepped Master Dummo. Not alone. Behind him came a woman, draped in white, face hidden beneath a veil of silver mesh. Her presence silenced the air, like even the torches bowed to her. "Leave us," she said to Dummo. He obeyed without a word.
Elira stared. Who are you? The woman pulled back the veil.
Her face was both young and impossibly old. Wrinkled in places, ageless in others. Her eyes glowed like molten amber. "I am the keeper," she said, "of what your blood abandoned. You are not the first to run from it. But perhaps, you will be the last." Elira clenched her fists. "I don't understand any of this. I was taken here. Sold.
He don't belong. You were not sold, the keeper interrupted.
You were summoned. And your blood brought you back. She walked slowly toward the tapestry, pointing at the crowned woman. Her name was Zalika, a seer, a warrior.
Your bloodline.
When she stood against the forest's curse, she bound it with her body and sealed it with a promise. Every seventh daughter of her seventh generation would return.
And you are the seventh. Elira shook her head.
That's not possible.
My family, my aunt never told me anything like this.
Because they never knew. Your mother ran before she could be told. She escaped the binding and broke the line. You were born outside the circle, but the forest still remembered.
Elira backed away. No. This is madness. The keeper stepped closer.
Then why does the land not let you leave? Why does your blood wake the sealed door? Why do you hear voices in your dreams, calling you by a name you never gave them? Elira stopped. Because it was true. Since she came to Nkulu, her dreams had changed. Strange songs.
Olchan.
A woman in fire whispering her name. She had thought it was fear. But maybe it was memory. Why me? She asked finally. What does the forest want? The keeper looked into her eyes with a sadness that bent time. The curse is weakening.
The all things stir.
You must choose. Unlock the seal, take your place as the next binder, or let the forest take Nkulu whole. This village exists because of your blood.
Without you, it ends. Elira's voice cracked.
I didn't ask for this.
No, the keeper said.
But your ancestors did. And the price always finds its way home. She handed Elira a key small bone white, etched with spirals. Decide before the next moon. After that, the forest won't wait. Then she vanished into smoke. Elira was left alone. The next morning, she was returned to her quarters. No chains. No guards.
Just du moetting, silent à ever.
He didn't speak of the chamber. Didn't speak of the tapestry. Only handed her a simple clay bowl with tea. You should rest, he said. Your mind will need to be clear for what comes next. She sipped the tea without trust, but without resistance. The hours passed. By nightfall, Elira sat by the carved door in the library, the key in her palm, the whispering wind at her back, and the symbol on the door glowing faintly, as if it knew she was near. She slid the key into the lock. The ground trembled.
The wind screamed.
And the door opened. The moment the door creaked open, a wind unlike any other blew past Elira. It didn't just rustle her hair or chill her bones. It whispered in forgotten tongues, brushing her soul with voices too ancient to name.
She stepped into the darkness.
Behind her, the door closed by itself. The stone groaned, sealing her away from the world she knew. A tunnel stretched out before her, carved from the earth itself. Symbols lined the walls, swirls, stars, eyes, and trees with roots that tangled into each other like veins. Each step forward made her heartbeat louder. The deeper she went, the more she sensed something, alive, watching. It was not fear. It was recognition. At the end of the tunnel, she emerged into a vast underground cavern. There in the center, stood a stone altar wrapped in vines. But these weren't ordinary vines. They moved, breathed, pulsed with a light of their own.
Above the altar Ronya tree.
Yes, hung. Its roots dangled from the ceiling like twisted ropes, and its leaves glowed pale blue, like trapped fireflies.
Beneath the root, lying still, was a woman's body. Zalika, the one from the tapestry.
But she wasn't dead. Her chest rose slowly, as if each breath took a year. Her eyes remained shut, but her fingers twitched. She was trapped in something deeper than sleep. Elira approached, her skin prickling with static.
Suddenly, a voice, different from the keeperess, spoke from the shadow. So, the exile returns.
She turned sharply. Out of the shadows walked an old man, tall, skeletal, wrapped in a robe of black feathers. His eyes were blind, but glowed white. "I am Izomo," he said, "the firstborn of Zalika, the one who refused the binding, the one who chose to stay."
Elira stepped back.
"You're her son." "And her failure," he said with a smirk. "She gave her blood to protect this land. I gave mine to free it." "What do you mean?"
Izomo walked in a slow circle around the altar.
"This village, Nkulu, was never meant to be a prison. It was a gate. A seal."
Zalika sealed the forest to stop what lay beneath.
"But in doing so, she locked us all inside. Her sacrifice became our curse."
Elira shook her head. "No."
The keeper said.
The keeper is loyal to Zalika's dream.
"But dreams die, girl."
The forest want to live again. And you are the key to breaking it open.
He raised his hand, and the vines coiled tighter around Zalika's sleeping form.
The cavern trembled.
"I have waited for you, Elira. Waited for the blood of the seventh. With your touch, I can wake the forest. Let the roots reclaim what they once ruled." "Why would I help you?" Elira snapped. "Because you're not like Zalika," he said.
You were abandoned.
Sold. Lied to. Used.
Don't you want freedom? Don't you want vengeance? Elira hesitated. The room darkened. The vine said. The root from the ceiling slittered downward like finger. She sleeps, Izomo whispered.
But her heart still beats. One cut, one drop of your blood on her chest, and the spell ends.
The curse dies. The forest lives. Elira en trembled.
Freedom.
Revenge.
Power. It called to her. But then, a sound. A song. Soft.
Lullaby-like.
Coming from Zalika's lips. A memory from nowhere flooded Elira's mind. A baby, held in strong arms. A voice singing that same song. Warmth.
Love.
Protection. Her knees buckled. She remembered her mother. Just a flash, a shadow, but it was there. Zalika's dream hadn't died. It had survived in her blood.
No, Elira whispered. Izomo snarled. Fool.
He raised his staff, and the roots above lunged downward. But Elira moved faster. She grabbed the vine-wrapped dagger from the altar, its handle still warm, and cut her palm. Blood spilled onto the stone. Zalika's eyes opened. Everything exploded in light.
Izomo screamed, the root shrieked, the cavern cracked like thunder.
And in the chaos, Zalika rose, not as a corpse, but as a spirit blazing with fire and gold. "You would break the seal for your pride," she said to Izomo, her voice like 1,000 drums. "But my blood chose differently." She turned to Elira. "You have done what I could not."
You chose mercy over power.
Zalika raised her arms, and the cavern shook. Roots turned to ash. Vines burned. Izomo fell to his knees, howling, until he crumbled into dust. The spell was broken. Zalika's light dimmed. She cupped Elira's face gently.
My time ends. Your Bejin.
The village must be freed, but not forgotten. With a final breath, she passed the flame into Elira's heart, and vanished.
Elira awoke in the village square.
It was morning. The people of Nkulu stood silently, staring as the sky above the forest began to clear for the first time in centuries.
Master Dumo knelt before her.
The keeper emerged from the shadows, her eyes soft. "It is done," she said. "But what you do next will shape everything." Elira looked at the people, then at the horizon, and whispered, "No one will ever be sold again." The sky over Nkulu was no longer gray.
For the first time in living memory, sunlight touched the treetop.
Birds no one had ever heard before began to sing. The mist lifted, and with it, the weight. Elira stood at the center of the village square, barefoot, blood still on her hand from the wound she'd given herself. Around her, the villagers knelt. They didn't understand everything, but they felt it. The curse was gone. The forest had changed. So had Elira. 4 days, silence ruled. Not out of fear, but reverence.
No one left, not yet.
Even though the barrier was gone, the people waited, watched Elira, who now lived in Zalika's old house, surrounded by scrolls, herbs, and the lingering scent of ash and moss. She studied the roots of the land. She read Zalika's journal, buried deep beneath the altar, now uncovered by the collapsing stone. She learned of the first binding, of how the forest once roamed, wild and ancient, devouring land and sky, of how Zalika had offered her own soul to anchor it, and of the prophecy.
When the servant walks in shadow and bleeds without danger, the root shall yield, and the land shall breathe.
That 7th was her. She was not just someone sold. She was the descendant of the guardian.
And now, the heir of the forest.
But the past was not done with her. One night, while walking beyond the village, she found them, 6 figures at the border. Thin, tired, wrapped in travel cloaks and desperation.
Runaway.
From villages far beyond. They had heard rumors, of a girl who shattered a curse, of a forest that opened its eyes. Elira brought them in. Fed them. Listened to their stories. Abuse. Poverty. Loss. All of it, familiar. And then, she made her decision.
Elira Khaled Agatring. Every village calme.
From the youngest child to the oldest elder. She stood on the same stone where she'd once been dragged before Master Dumo. The same place she'd been sold. But now, her voice was the only law. I was brought here against my will, she began, her voice strong but not bitter. And yet I found something greater than vengeance. She looked out over the crowd.
He found a purpose.
She raised her hand, revealing the markings on her wrist, now glowing faintly gold.
Symbol from the altar.
From her blood.
We are not prisoners anymore.
But we cannot return to the world that forgot us, either.
Murmure spread.
Elira smiled gently. So we will build something new. Not a village of secrets, but a sanctuary.
For the lost. The cast out.
The sold. She gestured to the 6 strangers behind her. They will be the first of many. Someone stepped forward, an old woman who had once helped bind Elira to her sail.
Her voice cracked. Can we ever be forgivant?
Elira nodded.
The forest remember.
But it also forgives. And Son Kulu changed. The old leaders stepped down. Elira formed the Council of Flame and Root, named for Zalika's fire and the forest's heart. Every child was taught the true history.
The darkness and the light. No more secret. No more sacrifice.
The village opened its gates to those in need, runaway girls, widows, orphans, and even former traders who begged for redemption. The forest, once wild and angry, began to bloom. It gave back its medicine, its beauty, its peace. But never again would it be caged.
10 years later.
Elira stood beneath the same tree where her journey had begun. Now grown tall, its branches shimmered in the sunlight. Children played beneath it. A young girl ran up to her, breathless.
Mother Elira.
There's a woman at the gate. Elira raised an eyebrow. Does she have a name? The child nodded. She says her name is Abony. She's looking for her daughter. Elira froze. Her heart stopped.
Abony.
Her mother. At the gate stood an older woman, eyes hollow, shoulders slumped under guilt heavier than any chain. She did not expect forgiveness. Only truth. Elira walked to her. For a long time, they stared at each other. Then slowly, Elira reached out and took her hand. You gave me away, she whispered. Abony wept. I was weak and afraid. Elira nodded. I was strong, because I had to be. Then she stepped aside. And let her in. Epilogue. Legends would later say the girl who was sold became a queen of the forest. But Elira never wore a crown. She wore soil on her hands. And a flame in her heart. The village thrived. The forest lived. And from that soil, from that pain, came something eternal.
Notre vengeance.
Not power, but a home.